Why, hello.
Hey there. So, on our way home today, we saw a massive plume of black smoke. And I've also heard that there were fires in Boulder. So we get home and we're smelling nothing but smoke inside the house. We're like, what in the world's going on? Oh, it must be from Boulder, or it must be from that fire that we saw on the way home. No, actually, it's the smoker next door. Hickory smoke smell. Realized.
It's different than in industrial things on fire smell.
Yeah.
Yep. The smell of Colorado in the late summer is the smell of smoke.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Didn't John Denver write a story about that? Or a song?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Is that a local thing? Am I supposed to know these things?
I don't know.
Just because his name has Denver in it?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know he did stuff in other areas, like the Country Road song, but I didn't know if he did one for like Smoky, Colorado instead of Smoky Mountains.
Oh, maybe. I mean, our smoke is real smoke, whereas the Smoky Mountains, I believe it's
Mist,
because it's
right?
They're misty mountains.
Yeah, which is much nicer actually than real smoke.
Yeah, much nicer. Easier on the breath.
Indeed. Well, I'm Dale.
I'm Kit.
And welcome to Catholic Hitch. We're a Catholic family seeking heaven and hoping to pick up others along the way.
Small talk.
So today was quite enjoyable, although it crept up on the schedule. I did not realize until you told me yesterday that today was the Nun Run. So, and you found out about this through the Sisters of Life?
Yeah,
right?
so the
It's their
retreat
event.
that I do, I asked one of the sisters, my sons have rather strong contact with priestly role models, but we don't have sisters anywhere in our lives. So I was asking, one of the sisters for her advice, only that we want to keep that door open to religious vocations.
Yes.
And she said, well, the Nun Run might be a good opportunity. And so the Sisters of Life were there. It's their fundraising charity run.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a pack as a family and we did the 1 mile walk. No running for us, at least not for you and I. But
No,
our
the kids did. They ran.
Which was kind of cool. They ran the 1 mile.
Yeah.
And beat us to the finishing line.
75%. Well, actually, no, it's more like 60% now, technically, because, the little one was with us and Johnny, so.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was 60% of our children were running.
60% of our children, not 75.
20% were...
The math is getting harder.
Were being carried 100% of the time, and the other 20% were being carried 50% of the time.
Yeah, well, Johnny was, he allowed for... He made it a while before I had to carry him.
Well,
so it wasn't too
20%
bad.
of our children are always being carried right now.
Yes, right. You're doing math that I can't do, so...
You're the one that said 60% earlier.
I know, and that's as far as my math skills go.
So it's, there's a half marathon, there's a 5K, and then there's the 1 mile, fun walk, family-friendly walk, which is what we did. And it kind of made me want to do the 5K in a future time. Not next year, for sure, but maybe a couple of years from now. And it ended with a mass.
Yes, yeah, which was honestly the nicest part. It was fun that all the families could... I'm not sure what he wants, but it was nice that all the families could kind of come together and play afterwards. Sorry, smoky.
Yeah, you inhaled some smoke.
They had, I don't know whose it was, but it was a shellacked 2x4 Jenga
version.
Yeah. And of course, all of the kids that were playing with it were 3 foot tall and couldn't put them on top. And
yeah, so generally barely out of toddler years.
Yeah, and there was an older gentleman that was playing, and I thought it was his. And then I went over because our kids were over there, and then he's like, "Hey, I gotta go. Can you watch these kids?" I'm like, "Oh, I guess this is not your Jenga set."
He just got stuck.
Yeah, so
he didn't want to walk away with kids.
No, and they were doing what kids do. They were building and then undoing at the same time. So one little sister was pulling them out, and then the brother kept taking them and putting them back in together
to build the full tower.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, so there was some lawn games. There was a playground nearby that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
And it ended with mass on the lawn, and it was probably the same amount of people as we have at a 12:30 mass, would you say? If not more. Felt like it was a 12:30 crowd. It was pretty
close.
big.
It was close. I mean, there was probably the same amount, close to almost 200. I don't think it was much more than that.
Okay. I mean, it was quite the logistics feat.
Yeah.
And I did sit there thinking in my head, well, and with my mouth out loud, I suppose I did think out loud that if I had a heads up that we were going to need to set up mass in this particular way, in this particular direction, I would have, prior to people setting down chairs, demarcated where the aisles were going to be, which wouldn't be too hard with construction tape and with just simple stakes to kind of stake out where you wanted people to sit, where you wanted the processional to be, because it wound up being quite chaotic. We had to move in order for them to put in an impromptu aisle. The impromptu processional aisle went into a tree branch. So
yes. But did you notice that the one guy who was next to it, he was holding it back for everybody?
He held it back, yeah.
Oh, that was quite nice.
Well, just for the... did he hold it back for everyone?
Except for when they went through. But once he was done with receiving communion, he held it for others as they were going through.
All right, because I was like, I definitely had to walk into a branch.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the folks that were doing the logistics were all seminarians, because Father said he had brought 200 seminarians with him or something.
Not 220.
Same thing.
No, not at all the same thing. I'm not sure there are 200 seminarians. Are there? I don't think there are.
Across all programs in both the seminaries in our diocese, and yes. But that's a lot. It's not just a class of seminarians. It's all seminarians for all 7 years. Plus,
which would be unbelievable to get all seminarians out.
Yeah, that would be pretty wild.
20.
Yep.
They were the very energetic young men.
Yeah. That could sing the Latin pieces quite well.
Yeah, they had very nice voices.
Quite nice.
They were well practiced at chant.
Yes, which was nice. And it was nice when Sister did the psalm, because she did it in chant tone. Which was like, oh, I know what to do here. Great. This was wonderful.
And that's the way it is on retreat, is we do the morning and the evening prayers with them, and I think the noon prayers. And they all chant, very well. So they lead us in chanting. It's always kind of a mixed bag with us women who are not used to chanting and what we do. Kind of like Tenebrae-esque, where there's lots of division on where the tones are kind of going up or down, depending on how well practiced someone is.
Yeah.
But it was a practiced crowd today, and they led well.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to introduce the family to one of the sisters that I kind of have gotten to know a little bit through the retreat. And she remembered me, which was really nice. And so I got to introduce her to the family and kind of tell her about baby on the way. And she's very nice. She's such a sweetheart. So that was kind of
wonderful.
I wanted the girls to have a little bit of an encounter with
I was
one
glad
of
you
the
did.
sisters.
I really was glad you did that.
I was praying to God. I was like, God, can you give me this? Please give me this opportunity, if it be your will. And I kind of was like, all right, this is the time. And it was. So we went right up to her, and there was no one queued up in the line, because it was kind of like a receiving line for the sisters the entire event.
Yeah.
I felt like people were just constantly talking to them, which is natural. It's their charity event, and everyone there is there because they care about, their apostolate.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. It was wonderful, and I appreciated that Father was so passionate towards, what the Missionary Sisters of Life are doing.
It's not the Missionary Sisters of Life.
Oh,
it's just the Sisters of
the
Life.
Sisters of Life. Sorry, I'm mincing sisters.
Just in that it might be another order of nuns.
Yeah, I'm probably mincing it with the.
You're doing
others.
it with the Cabrini ones,
yes,
I think.
The Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart.
Okay.
I think that's their
and
order.
Actually, you did a gala for those sisters earlier this week. So you brought our oldest, because I'm just still not feeling very well. But you guys got to go to a gala.
Yes, yeah. Very different sisters.
Very different.
But doing amazing work, all the same. And so it was their annual fundraiser for the shrine here in Colorado. And we had a very nice treat in that the either director or executive, one of the producers of a new Mother Cabrini movie that's coming out, was there, and he showed us a couple of sneak peeks, and it is gonna be awesome.
That's cool.
So he also either directed or produced Bella. I'm not sure which. He's an older gentleman from Philly, and I guess as a young man, he learned of Mother Cabrini, and she became like his guiding saint. And so one of the super cool things he said about as they were doing the movie and everything, that Mother Cabrini was their executive producer, which was a nice touch, because it's true. It's true. She was there guiding the whole time. And what I didn't put two and two together, and I think I've heard this before, but I just never realized, Mother Cabrini was the front runner of a woman coming in and saying, no, God has told me to do this. And everybody said no, but yet she continued to persevere. And one of the scenes that they showed, apparently the Pope at the time had said, hey, you want to put or after her order had gotten together, she wanted to open a hospital in New York. And the Pope said, no way, you can't do that. How are you going to do that? You don't have enough people to do it. You don't have the money. You want to do that? You need to show me that you have all the money raised to buy the hospital and get it done. And so she left, and then she went to the Italian Senate. And the Italian senators basically said, that's nice, you're a woman. Bye. See you later. We don't have time for you. And so she basically snuck in to when they were in session and presented her argument to them and got all of them to donate and fund her.
Because she put him on the spot?
Yes. Yeah. So it was amazing because I'd never heard that before. That was just one of the pieces. And the production quality was fabulous. I mean, it's not a low budget film by any means. And so they're hoping that next year, I think about this time next year, they'll hopefully be able to get it in theaters and to streaming platforms. And their primary push is going to be streaming platforms, but they'll have limited viewings because, as he said, that's where it's at, which I think we can all agree. Who's going to movies anymore? It's just not the thing, and it costs a lot, and we're all used to having our giant TVs in our homes and our sound systems. So,
yep.
But it was super cool to see that part, and then just to enjoy time and meet and see a couple of people that I knew that I actually didn't expect to be there, which was really kind of fun. And then at the end, they'd had something that I had never seen before. So that was a paddle raiser that when you raised your paddle, you would bid for $100, and that was your donation. And if you were the last bidder, you got $1,000 prize to go to the Broadmoor down in Colorado Springs, which is our only 5-star hotel here in Colorado. So it was pretty invigorating because it just kind of kept going.
Wow.
And after about 10, 15 minutes or so, so
the last at the highest level, right?
What's that?
Not the last $100 person.
No, $100. Everybody put up for $100. So if you were the last person that said, put your number up, and he called it and he was done, you won the tickets for the $1,000 gift card to go to the Broadmoor and do whatever you want. And so normally those things, I guess, kind of just keep going on and on and on. It'll like 20, 30 minutes, no problem. And so they got about 10, 15 minutes into it. And the auctioneer's like, hey, we're going to put a timer on this. And you're not going to know when the timer goes off. And, the assistant who was there, and she's like counting out and making sure that they're getting all the bid numbers and everything. She was looking at it. Yeah. So it kept going back and forth. And this one guy really wanted it. I mean, he was just kept raising it every time. It was him and number 119, whatever on the way on the other side, that number kept popping up. And so we kept going back and forth. And right at the end, he put it up. And then the gal said, that's time. And he was like, yeah. He looked at his wife and said, I told you I was going to get it. He was just pumped that he was last one. I don't have the slightest clue how much he in the end, you know, because every time you put your paddle up, it was another $100. So,
but you feel like you kind of allocate it to a separate part of your like mental accounting that
right.
It's like going to a charitable cause.
Right. And then if you think like, okay, if I, you know, do this, if I raise my paddle and it's like, it's worth $1,000, so I can raise my paddle up to 10 times before, okay, I've got a diminishing return here technically, right?
Yeah.
So
but
a lot of people will be like, oh, I'll raise mine 5 times. I'll raise mine 6 times.
Yeah.
And still feel like that's good. And then it's all going for charity, so it's good. Oh,
that's interesting.
Yeah. So they raised a good chunk of money.
Did they do the same thing as last time where they would have higher bids, or was it just 100?
No, they did. They did have. They started at like really big bidders and said, "Hey, are you willing?" Or not
so
bidders,
but
the reverse. Are you willing
like
to give
$5,000?
Right. Yeah. So they started like at 25, and then went to 20, and then 15, 10, 5, 1, and so forth.
Okay.
And then the last bit was the $100 paddle raises, which probably raised. I would imagine they probably made like, I don't know, $3,000 to $5,000 easy, if not way more than that.
Smart.
Yeah,
nice.
It was pretty cool.
Well, hopefully they did very well because your firm's on that project.
They did. I think they met their goal, but I am sure I'll find out eventually because that affects our project budget if they didn't get to where they need to. But yeah, it was super cool.
Nice.
Big talk.
Big talk. So it's been a busy few weeks in one sense, but it's also been a strange time. That's not the first time that I've gone through this, but, you know, the morning sickness. And I start kind of getting philosophical and a little bit despairing when morning sickness lasts into this phase. So I'm kind of entering the second trimester, and you know, mentally you always hope like it's going to end like as I cross over into the second trimester. And when it doesn't, it just kind of feels like you're trapped in this like endless time where things don't change. And you start to feel like you can't remember what it felt like to not feel nauseous all the time.
Yeah.
And not be fighting vomiting all the time. And so it made me like start thinking about the nature of time. So you didn't watch this TV show, but I did. I finished it out. You started watching it with me. But it was a television series called 12 Monkeys.
Yes.
And it was based on, a movie that I did not see.
Yeah. The movie was interesting. Bruce Willis and I don't know who else. I only watched...
I thought it was Brad Pitt.
No, it's Bruce Willis.
Oh, okay. Well, obviously I've not seen this movie. So I've only seen the TV series.
Okay,
so I don't really know.
We'll watch it.
Okay. When I'm not feeling sick. We'll watch it. But I actually quite enjoyed the TV series and where they went with the TV series because the premise is time travel in order to try to thwart like a bad event.
Which is what the movie's about.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, that's where it started. But toward the end, and this is going to be spoilers a little bit, so if you haven't watched the 12 Monkeys series and you don't want it spoiled for you, it is, I think, a 10-year-old series at this point. I don't think it's not like Lost. It's like a cult classic. But
no,
I don't, just turn it off if you don't want that spoiled. The way that the TV series evolves is you have antagonists, obviously. And for a while, the antagonists seem like they're this cult that wants to basically release this virus to, annihilate most of mankind and kind of start over.
Yeah.
That's the antagonist group. But it ends up evolving that the antagonist group is... it's a group of people that want to end time because they see time as being this like something that we are enslaved to. And if we can free ourselves from time, that we will be in this utopia all of a sudden. This utopia situation, we can only free ourselves from the bonds of time. So that was their end goal. And it was kind of interesting how they were going to like achieve that and what it was going to be like in timelessness. But when you start thinking about time versus no time, like what is it going to be like when they stop time? It kind of makes you think, as a Catholic person, about heaven versus our present age. Like we live within time, but heaven is timeless.
Right.
And that's part of what makes heaven like a little bit impossible to fathom as well as maybe a little frightening. to fathom is we can't imagine what life would be without change, which is where time resides, right? We only see time when we see change happening.
Yeah, and I think it's a point to say that, like, inside of sci-fi, we think you're either in or out of time, but in reality, like in heavenly terms, it's not being in or out of time. It is or it is not. You know, because God is the one who created time as part of our sin, right?
Yeah. So the idea is, I've not read enough philosophy, and certainly not enough of the church fathers to really know if this has been hashed out by them. But, you know, in the beginning, we had our, you know, I guess patronal family members, the original couple, Adam and Eve, at least in the story, the way that we, you know, try to conceive of the original sin.
Right.
And they are in the Garden of Eden, and everything is good and everything is well. And then they decide to disobey God through their own choice. So they bring about sin into the world. And if we didn't have time, then, you know, their choice to disobey God, that would be a permanent choice. And there would be no recovery from that choice. So
right.
In a way, time is God's way of trying to allow us to escape from that perpetual sin.
Yeah.
And of course, we couldn't do it on our own. We owed something that we could not pay.
Right.
We owed a price that we could not pay.
But it's a sign of his goodness and love, which I don't think we think of a lot of times, because you think of time as your enemy, right? Because if you're thinking of this world, we are short on time. We don't have enough time. You're going to get old very quickly, and then you're out of time. You know, that's what we always think about. But like you're saying, it's there because mankind as a whole is in this constant, or was in this constant move towards Christ coming and his salvation. And now that we have the option, the choice to be saved, Christ is that gatekeeper that allows us to go home to
cooperate with God's graces. And that's the constant choice, like, that we have within time. And that's where I very much enjoy our Catholic perspective, that we're not, like, always saved. Like, our baptism is a permanent mark, our confirmation is a permanent mark, and we're given access to the sacraments, you know, once we've prepared for them, where there's a constant outpouring of Christ's grace. But we can still, like, we live in a land of choice. So we can choose from moment to moment where we're going to reside. Are we going to choose good, or are we going to choose evil? And I started thinking about the virtues. So there are 7 virtues, 3 of which are heavenly virtues and 4 of which are cardinal virtues. So the heavenly virtues are faith, hope, and charity. Those are very well known. Charity is another word for love. And the cardinal virtues are prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. So prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. And if you start to think about, like, how does time affect the virtues? When it comes to the theological virtues of faith, hope, and love, time doesn't really have, it doesn't matter whether or not you're residing in time or out of time with those virtues. Those virtues are kind of like eternal virtues. Mm-hmm. But for the cardinal virtues, and that's probably why they're named such, like, they all operate within time. So, like, fortitude is having strength within time to persevere. Temperance is having the ability within time to, you know, manage one's own inclinations. Justice is within time trying to pursue what's going to be the best for everyone. And then what's the last one? Temperance, fortitude, justice, and oh my goodness, I'm losing it.
Swing for hope.
Prudence. Oh, yes.
That's how I remember.
Swing for hope, swing for faith, swing for charity, for temperance and prudence, for fortitude and justice too. That was our pinata chant for faith formation.
That's how I remember.
It was a good idea, right?
It was great.
For as far as the kids needing to learn about their virtues.
And the adults.
So that was prudence, right? So, like, within time, making a prudent decision is making the decision that is going to bring you closer to Christ, or is going to be the more virtuous choice.
Right. Yeah. Because when you think about choice and time, we have been given that choice, and that is like, but we can redeem ourselves, right? That's what you're saying. But when you think of like an angel,
we can't redeem ourselves, but we can cooperate with God's
yeah,
grace.
Yeah. That's what I mean. We can say yes to God, or we can say no to God, and as like crazy little toddler children, we flip flop all the time, like daily, probably by the second it happens. But if you think of like heavenly beings, of angels, they are outside of time. So when they make the choice, they're in alignment or they're not in alignment, and that's that, right?
Yeah, they made the choice at, when God revealed his plan, right? That was their moment of choice, and they don't reside in time, so they don't need the other virtues. They don't need temperance, justice, prudence, and fortitude.
Yes.
They just need faith, hope, and charity. Versus we need those 4 virtues in order to try to constantly cooperate with God's graces. And vice is kind of the same way, where vices operate within time and, are trying to prevent us from practicing virtue very well. So it's just been something that's been on my mind, because when you feel like, I'm sure that this is the same of anyone that's going through a more significant trial in their life than morning sickness. I feel like this isn't a very worthy trial, but it's certainly trying to me. It kind of shows how weak I am, how difficult this time has been for me. But you start to not notice the change, and not noticing the change makes you feel as if time is not affecting you.
Right.
So you're going to bed and you're getting up, but like after a while, it kind of feels like Groundhog's Day, and like your hunger is different. It's just it colors everything and taints everything, and it leads me to kind of feel despair. And I was talking with my spiritual director actually, and she said, well, this is literally desolation that you're in. And it felt really great to kind of hear that named, because I didn't realize it prior. And what you do in desolation is you realize that that desolation won't last forever.
Right.
And
spiritual desolation.
Yeah, spiritual desolation. And you also realize that, there is going to be, the consolation, and you've received those consolations in the past, so you remember the consolations. And so trying to focus on the fact that, this is happening to my body, and it's a really good thing. It's a good sign of a healthy pregnancy. And hopefully the result of a healthy pregnancy will be a baby.
Yes, a healthy baby.
Yeah, hopefully a healthy baby in 5 months or so.
Right.
God willing.
Yeah. I think part of it too, because it is a suffering, right? And God gives us sufferings to fortify, to temper us, right? Like kind of you're going through the spiritual forge right now, and He's molding you and making you as He hopes you will be. That you will take it and then be even better.
Yeah, and
from it.
You say that, and then I reflect upon where I am, and I think when you're feeling really well, you're like, oh yeah, when suffering comes, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be saying nothing but rosaries all the time.
No.
And, oh my gosh, I can barely hold anything together in my life.
And that's why we have the book of Job, because that's exactly where
end,
he was.
He's like, screw it.
I can't deal. And all his friends are like, no, but this is, our God, our love and our King. And he's just, yes, but, so it's just like that. I think we get that it's hard in the moment, which is why you have a spiritual director, and she's helping you to see outside of this moment and the difficulty of the suffering. But I hope that in the end it's going to be a wonderful gift and grace.
I hope it's going to be grace, that I'm, building up some kind of grace or strength, because I feel like utterly defeated is the way I feel. So being compared to someone that's in like a crucible that's like forming me into something better does not feel like a crucible right now. Not with I'm binge watching this or that in order to just try to take my mind off of how I feel and not vomit. It's just,
Yeah.
it's hard. So I don't feel like I'm, perseverance is doing anything for me.
Right. No, I get that. I mean, I think it's always difficult when we're in those moments of how we approach it. And the only thing I could say that I've been trying to learn is that just to identify, like, okay, it is a suffering, and how do you get through it? It's not easy. I'm not saying it's like all roses and wonderfully colored red steel in a forge. It's not. It's hard. It's difficult because we're in the forge and it's hot and things are crazy and we don't understand why we have to go through it, and it hurts.
Well, in a way, my disposition is also a suffering for you, right? Because you are picking up so much around the house and so much care for our family that I normally do, and I just can't do it right now. And I think you're like very cheerful about it. There's no complaining coming out of your mouth. Versus I feel like I'm a litany of complaining right now. And so maybe actually some of my suffering is also a crucible for you, and you're just being maybe better forged by it. Maybe it's a red hot flame for you.
Oh, it's not that easy, but it's something that if you're suffering through it, I'm suffering through it, right? Because we're husband and wife.
Well, because I make you.
Well, even if, let's say, you were more cheerful in your suffering, and you were doing litanies of God, this is wonderful and amazing and beautiful, blah, I think if I didn't suffer with you through it, then I wouldn't be a very good husband. I that's my honest opinion of it. And I think I have many friends that when their wives go through this, they try their best to do the same, to suffer with, and we can't suffer in the same way. We have
I've
no
told
understanding,
you several times
no clue.
I wish I could share this with you.
Oh, I know. I wish I could. I would take all the vomiting for you. It'd be great. I'd lose like 60 pounds. You gain like 20 pounds instead of 40 pounds or whatever the magic number you want to be at. And it would be great, but I can't. So I have to suffer in different ways. So caffeinated coffee has helped me out. It keeps me going.
Yeah.
At least for now. Then I'll wean myself back off the junk.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but it's a pretty cool idea. This whole idea of time. I'd never thought about that before, and how that affects everything we do.
Yeah, it's it makes me think about the saints. So, like Saint Therese of Lisieux, Saint Catherine, and the saints that were so close to Jesus, and they died young, and they longed for death. So when you're reading Story of a Soul, excuse me.
Yeah, smoke's getting thick.
You hear Saint Therese her joy when she's coughing in the middle of the night and she feels something warm coming out of her mouth, and it's dark, and it's so dark she can't even identify what she spit into a kerchief, and she's filled with hope. And when she looks at it in the morning and sees that it's blood, she's overjoyed because she knows that her time on earth is coming to a close.
Yeah.
And it's those are the saints that get it, and it's really scary, and
yes,
it's hard to fathom how you are so connected with God and His will and His plan that you desire to depart time and to live forever in God's kingdom.
Yeah.
But that's literally heroic virtue,
right?
Demonstrated by saint after saint after saint.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, one of those saints. I can't remember the name of the saint, but he was a young kid and he's at school. And they were talking about, oh, well, what if Jesus came tomorrow? And one of them's like, oh, well, I need to get to confession. Another one, oh, I'm not ready. I got to do this. And then another kid's like, great. Can I talk to him now? He's just ready, that it would be the most wonderful thing in the world because he would be here and be with him. And he is totally ready in that moment to meet Jesus. I mean, that's just, wow, cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get there. That'd
I know.
Be nice. Not quite there.
I say kind of flippantly, Jesus, can you please come again now? But when I actually think about what I'm saying, I'm like, ooh, that's very cavalier of me to say.
I always say,
Like, I'm ready for you, Jesus, right here as I am.
yeah, I always say, Lord Jesus, please come tomorrow. I'll be ready tomorrow. Probably won't, but that way at least I'm not saying come right now, because then I have to be honest with myself. And am I ready?
I know.
Not quite.
It's
I
like
mean,
a hard reflection.
I'm closer, actually getting to confession. So that was good. Checking the box, but that old time thing comes along, and all of a sudden I'm not ready anymore.
Yeah. All I had to do was go to one lector training after confession, and I'm like, crap, I need to go to confession again.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Oh, Q&A. Everything devolves into Q&A.
Well,
Endless Q&A.
indeed. Well, if you've got any ideas on this idea of time, or actually know, who's smarter than us thought of that before we did, because I'm sure somebody did.
There's no way this is original.
Yeah, let us know so we can actually be smarter on the idea. CatholicHitch@gmail.com.
May the Lord guide and direct our journey.
Amen.